Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Bowman. I am the publications manager for Frameline45 and a member of the programming team. And I would guess you probably just watched raw uncut video as part of Frameline45. This is one of our local documentaries, or at least, sort of Bay Area themed. And I think it's really interesting about the documentary, which of course you probably have seen. It's about palm drive video, and I feel like it takes place at a really compelling juncture in sort of two different histories. The history of sort of gay history and sort of as the AIDS pandemic was beginning, as well as the history of pornography, sort of when we were shifting from theatrical releases into the new dawn of home video. And I feel like raw uncut video sort of takes place at this really fascinating juncture. In addition to just having its own sort of, style and feel and themes, of course, that you wouldn't find just anywhere else. So I'm really excited that we have both of the directors here today to do a little Q&A with us. So if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi,
sure. I'm Ryan White.
Oh, go ahead, Jinx. I knew that was going to happen.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. My name's Ryan White. I am one of the co-directors of Raw Uncut Video.
And I'm Alex Clausen, the other co-director of Raw Uncut Video.
And welcome. Thanks for doing the Q&A with us here for Frameline45. So I guess my first question is when was, and either one of you can answer or answer on top of each other if you like. Because these questions are sort of geared to both of you as the co-directors. But my first question is, I'm wondering, when was the first time you heard of palm drive video?
Sure. So Alex and I worked on a short film that actually played at Frameline a couple of years ago called Cruising Elsewhere, which was about a lost cruising area on the Russian River. And for that project, we interviewed Jack Fritscher because he's kind of local historian, lives in Sonoma County. And then Alex and I kind of just got to know Jack and his husband, Mark. And, we're kind of hanging out with them. And at some point along the way, they said, oh, we did this thing, palm drive video, back in the 80s and the early 90s. And are you interested in any of the films? And they gave us some of the films. And then Alex and I kind of went, holy shit, this is really interesting. And then it also sort of tied into kind of how the kink and leather communities were sort of really stepped to the forefront with their own form of AIDS activism during that period. So I think that really kind of got us interested, and we wanted to see more of palm drive stuff. And then it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy just to find this enormous local archive that neither of us knew about. I mean, there's a fair amount of history along the Russian River area in Sonoma County, and to see bits of that recorded was great. It was just a complete surprise.
So you had no awareness of palm drive video before you met Jack and Mark?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's wonderful. So at what point after you saw the videos and saw sort of the archive, did you realize, hey, we'd like to make a documentary about this?
I mean, I think as we kind of learned more, at first we were just really interested in this archive, right? And the fact that Jack and Mark were extremely generous and opened up the archive to us and kind of said, go at it. And then I think Alex and I, so we kind of explored and we watched some films, and then, like I was saying before, Alex and I sort of really started having these conversations about porn and fetish porn as AIDS activism. Because that was something that Jack and Mark kind of commonly talked about in terms of their remembrances of palm drive. And so it was kind of at that point where Alex and I started to understand that there was a little bit more to this than just the kind of sexy, crazy, kinky stuff, that there was actually something that was going on behind the scenes, right? And that there was actually a purpose. It's great that, pornography is produced and folks get off on it, but then to look at it from this completely different angle, right? This completely different angle of porn, fetish porn as AIDS activism. And I think that was the point when Alex and I said, hey, there's actually a really strong project here.
Well, and also just the volume. Like still don't think we've seen everything that they have. Like it's so like the archive is so deep, and they did so much work. It was just your just imagination, like looking at them runs wild. It was just nice to have an inexhaustive supply almost.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to know that there's always, a hidden fetish or a palm drive video that's sort of waiting for you at some point, I guess, if their archives run that deep. Because I don't know if I got the sense of how much or how sort of deep their archives do run, especially because they don't, their videos aren't exactly accessible online, which I think also makes it kind of a fun, treasure trove of sorts of in the same way that I feel like, films that maybe were never released on video that you could only see in the theater sort of, with that regard, they have this sort of mystique about it. And I feel like that's what makes palm drive video pretty interesting to me, at least, is that, you can't just, there's something demystifying about having the internet at your fingertips and being able to just, search for and basically run through a studio's archive. But so you were you co-directed the film together. I'm sort of curious to what the sort of process was for working together. I don't know if it's sort of like a leapfrog sort of thing, or if it's one of you. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just sort of curious how the collaborative process works with you both.
Well, I think for me, this is definitely a new process for me. Ryan is definitely the one that has much more experience in documentary. So this was just all learning to me. So just sort of working back and forth with ideas, really talking through things. And I still feel like I'm learning as we go along this whole process. Yeah.
I mean, I think creatively, Alex and I have worked really well together. I think we kind of really complement each other in terms of kind of, tag teaming and having different strengths that really kind of come together. Alex is a great cinematographer. So, that was kind of, he had helped me with the previous project as a cinematographer. And then kind of that sort of, we started this project as a collaborative project. But I think that Alex initially kind of felt, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like initially you sort of felt most comfortable with the behind the camera kind of a thing. And then as we went on more shoots and as we met more people and as the project was progressing and as we saw more Palm Drive, I feel like Alex really kind of got a sense of how this process worked. And again, we just kind of, we're friends aside from this, so I think we just kind of are really good collaborators so far.
So far, so good. Yeah, that's great. So I know you've been working on the film for a couple years. I'm curious if you want to talk about some of the fundraisers that you put on to get the film made. I know that I definitely attended one on my birthday at Mr. S that was rather exciting a couple of years ago. I can't even remember what year it was, but yeah, just wondering if you could talk about those fundraising events.
Alex, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I would have trouble remembering what year that was too, because it took us 5 years for this project. So kind of early on, we worked with Mr. S and had a really great fundraiser to show a trailer and had Jack and Mark come out. We had folks from Bologna come out and they were doing some fetish demos. And I think that really highlighted this whole project has been really funded through community help. Certainly the San Francisco Bay Area really helped make this project happen. And then we had a second fundraiser where we were showing a 30-minute sample of the film at the Stud, which coincided with Jack Fritscher's birthday. And we had folks read fan letters, because Palm Drive used to get a lot of fan letters and requests for them for movies that they really wanted to see and offers to be models. So we had some great folks read letters for us at the fundraiser.
Is this potential? I mean, I don't think anybody owns DVDs anymore, but potentially, sort of special feature Easter egg footage. Some of these readings.
Totally.
Possibly. Yeah.
That's great. I know that I'm pretty sure I wasn't there because I think that fundraiser actually occurred right in the middle of Frameline. So I was too busy running all over the place back when we were, seeing things in person. But yeah, no, it sounded like fun for Jack's birthday.
But also, I think it's important that, and Alex definitely touched on this, but, it was really hard to fund this film, right? There was a reason why it took us 5 years. Part of that was because the archive was so big. The other part of it was slow going because we were pretty much always operating on no money. And the little bit of funding that we did get was through these kind of community kind of events and doing some crowdfunding. Because it's like when you tell traditional funders of documentaries that you are making a film about porn, gay fetish porn, it's like people run the other way, right? It's like nobody is interested in giving money to a project like this, other than folks in the community who have a little bit more invested in it. So, I cannot stress enough how important it was for us to have those events and how thankful we are to folks in the Bay Area and beyond who supported us to get us to this point.
So is funding, would you think that funding would be as difficult if you, if say it was just regular pornography or regular, that's a weird word, but non-fetish pornography? Do you think that would have, was it the fetish aspect that made it so difficult? Or just the pornography in general?
Probably a combination. I think that porn these days is still kind of a dirty word, right? We got kicked off of Instagram 3 times. We had 3 Instagram accounts, kind of just keeping people abreast of what was going on. They kept kicking us off, and I'm sure that there's lots of other folks who've kind of gone through similar things. But I think even just the word porn, for instance, sets off the Instagram algorithm, right? And
Sure.
Sets off those censors. So if you've noticed on Instagram, people are no longer spelling out porn, right? It's like P and then asterisk RN or whatever folks are doing. So I think that just that, even sure, fetish definitely kind of is confronting for some folks, but I think even just that concept of pornography, unfortunately, I think a large part of our society, even within queer cultures, is still pretty sex negative. And a big part of this film is about sex positivity, right? And that idea of exploring one's own sort of sexual fantasies and doing that in a healthy, kind of safe way, right? But again, I think people get really hung up on that pornography, on fetish, on we're going to see something that I don't want to see, kind of a thing. So yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it.
And I'm sure sort of the prudish nature of, the major social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, certainly isn't helping, the queer community come to any greater understanding of sexuality or pornography, fetish, things like that, if things are being blocked. So it's unfortunate that, you could have even gotten funding very easily. It still would have been hard to get the word out for the film based on just the way that social media is working these days. Really unfortunate, because there doesn't, anytime sort of I feel like a new option comes out, people jump on it and then have forgotten about it like 2 weeks later, sort of return to the big ones, which is too bad. But so I'm wondering, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but were there any other companies sort of doing similar things to Palm Drive Video at the time? Was there competition in the marketplace for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So David Hurls, an old reliable. David Hurls is an old friend of Jack's, but he was doing something similar to Palm Drive, actually a little bit before Palm Drive. Old Reliable was kind of late 70s, earlier 80s. Also Bob Jones, Close Up. There's a few kind of those smaller mail order porn companies that were operating at that time. And I think what's interesting though is a lot of them carved out their own niche, right? So like, for instance, Bob Jones was really known for feet,
Right.
He was known for more than that, but it was like, you know, Jack and Mark kind of took this like, we're going to do anything and everything, and I think some of the other kind of smaller studios might have been a little bit more focused, but Palm Drive was not alone, kind of in this project of sort of doing these kind of very low budget, you know, mail order videos.
So I think I have two more questions for you before we run out of time. The first question is, what surprised you the most while you were making this film? Like what? Yeah. Is there anything that surprised you while you were making this that you didn't expect?
Well, I think in terms of personalities, Thrasher's mom, Susan, was a total surprise because she was the one who actually convinced him to be on camera. She's just so open-minded, so sex positive. She's just wonderful to chat with, so open, and she was definitely helped make this film what it is. Really a surprise character, and she's definitely a highlight.
How far into making it did you start talking with her?
It took a little bit, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it was about 2.5, 3 years. We had tried to reach out to Steve Thrasher, and he wasn't really all that interested. You know, I mean, he's a dad, married with a wife. You know, it was like, I don't know if I want to relive those days from, you know, my early 20s or whatever. But then Jack and Mark introduced us to his mother, to Susan, and we kind of mentioned to her that we wanted to interview Thrasher, and like that, she had him. She said, "Okay, he's ready. Let's shoot the interview."
Better than the real thing, actually. Yeah, she adds a really great element to the film, I think.
Yeah.
Ryan, was there anything that surprised you while you were in the process of making this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had kind of my own personal journey through this project. At first, you know, I mean, I approached some of the, you know, there's a lot of things in the film, for instance, that I was unfamiliar with beforehand, right? You know, I didn't know that mud fucking was a thing, right? You know, I didn't know that vomit play was a thing. And, you know, I think at first there was a sort of, you know, kind of attraction to that sort of wild nature of some of those fetishes. They got me kind of excited in this filmmaker sort of a way. But through the process of making the film, I was kind of surprised at how it also kind of helped open up my own mind, in the sense that, you know, these things don't have to be for me, right? You know, puke porn was not made for me, right? And but it's still okay, right? It's still safe. It's, if people want to have that kind of play, and if it kind of ends in catharsis, and if it's consensual, then cool, right? And I think that that's a big part of the film, was this sort of Jack and Mark getting, you know, these guys to really explore themselves sexually and kind of take a risk and say, hey, let's go there. What are your fantasies? Let's fucking go there. Right. And again, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but those sexual fantasies and our sexual personas are so idiosyncratic and so personal to us, and they're precious, right? I mean, it's like, that is who we are, or who those folks are. And you don't have to be defined by, I did puke porn, but it's also like, it's cool, it's out there. And it just kind of, so for me, it was kind of a surprise to sort of see my perspective of, I guess, queer folks, of fetish communities, really broaden to, you know, kind of where it's like, we really have to kind of accept that there's diversity, all sorts of diversity in our communities. And we need to be accepting of that, right? And not just quickly write it off as, oh, that's disgusting, or that's not for me. Right? And kind of accept that some folks, you know, it's precious to them. It's part of who they are. And that's a special thing, and it deserves respect.
Absolutely. So, okay, one last question. So I know that you just had your international premiere in the Ukraine, and you actually went to the festival in person for that. I'm curious, how did audiences in Ukraine receive the film?
It was pretty phenomenal. A really positive response. The couple Q&As we had were we got very thoughtful and insightful questions. And like, I certainly had concerns about taking a film that's about such a specific place and time, how that would translate. And it still seems like people got it, which was, to go that far, and to have it received like that was wonderful.
I think that's maybe also one of the benefits, though, is having it taking place in a particular, place and time in history and location that actually makes it interesting as well.
But we weren't even really sure, and Alex just kind of touched on this, like how it feels like when we were making it, the film felt so specific to the Bay Area, right? It's so specific to Sonoma County, so specific to San Francisco, so specific to sort of, North American leather or kink culture. And then so to go to Kiev, and, Alex, it was maybe like half the theater was women, presumably heterosexual women, right? We were like, oh my God, how are folks going to deal with this? And it was like, they loved it and they got it, right? We had a couple walkouts, that's to be expected. With a film like ours. Right.
That would be pretty disappointing if nobody walked out, I think.
Yeah, we had, I think, a total of like 5 or 6 walkouts. But ultimately, people wanted to chat with us. It was like, I also was like, oh my gosh, after the film, people are just going to want to run away from us, right? But people were like genuinely interested in talking to us and talking about the film and talking about how the film made them feel and how it, kind of was liberating in certain senses to see, this period of time in which these men in the Palm Drive films were really exploring themselves sexually. It seemed to hit a nerve. I could be wrong, but it did seem like folks really responded well.
That's wonderful. I don't know what I would have expected audiences how they would respond in Ukraine, but I'm glad you had some walkouts, and I'm glad people seemed really enthusiastic about it. That's great. So anyway, I think we're out of time. So I wanted to thank Ryan and Alex for spending some time to talk with Raw Uncut Video with us. Frameline45 is going to be streaming, and the film is going to be streaming until the 27th, Sunday the 27th at midnight. So feel free to tell your friends. Streaming nationwide. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.
Happy Pride.